Once again, thank you, YouTube, for this great idea, and whoever decided to say that Feminism Deconstructed was a horrible idea and should not be a playlist. So I bring you the first episode of Feminism Deconstructed. So I did a video not too long ago responding to a request to find the most robust and interesting feminist argument and really challenge myself. This is a stream that Dr. Christy Winters put on last year, I believe. So one of the funnest things I did in that video is demonstrate that feminism denies evolution. Of course, they'll deny this to tooth and nail, unless you're talking about psychology. Then sure, everything is socially constructed and therefore evolution is bullshit. But what I thought I'd do, because I'm sticking to psychology in particular, the Feminist Evolutionary Perspectives Society. I thought this was pretty interesting, so why not just, dive into a little bit and see what's up with that. So as soon as you open it up, it's less than a paragraph. I was quite bewildered with this. It was written by the Feminist Evolutionary Perspective Society. No other mention of it. I don't even know when this was posted. There's no date, no timestamp, nothing. And it's just the one paragraph that says the pervasive mantra has gone around for decades that women want it all: career, family, work-life balance. But with a few minutes of reflection, it is often clear that it all is on a table goal, no matter who you are and how you measure all. Yet the professional world for women doesn't have to be all or nothing. I have to agree with that, but considering this is the only article I could find by these people, and I can't even call it an article, it's the start of an essay with one paragraph, this is nothing. But this got me thinking. The Feminist Evolutionary Perspective Society. Who is that? So I did a search for the Feminist Evolutionary Psychology Society. And this is what I found. So let me demonstrate how I discombobulate the mess that is feminism from evolutionary psychology. Let's look at the first two things here. Kramer and something, I'm not going to butcher that name. Feminism is the radical notion that all women are people. No, it isn't. We all know this not to be true. In fact, that does not even follow the dictionary definition of feminism. So immediately we're playing word salad, and immediately I'm skeptical. This puts off warning bells in my head saying this article probably shouldn't be trusted with anything that's relevant. Second, evolutionary psychology is the radical notion that human behavior is a part of the natural world. And yes, it is radical because most people disagree with it. Sad to say, if you were to look at any of the other people, such as Gad Sahad, Dr. Peterson, you name it, anybody that is in the world of psychology, neurology, biology, he's in marketing. Gad Sahad is in marketing. Anybody that looks at a psychological or behavioral thing from an evolutionary perspective to try and understand things as evolved beings is ostracized. So it's pathetic to begin with. So the radical notion that human behavior is a part of the natural world when other species actually also exhibit that behavior, at least at a rudimentary level, yeah, gotta see that. So the second one was okay. There is no reason on earth to believe that these two radical notions are irreconcilable. Well, the first one is a false premise. It's redefining feminism. The second one isn't a radical notion. It's well-grounded science. So let's go down the article. I'm already skeptical that this is a false starter to begin with, but let's go down a little bit. Believe it or not, most evolutionary psychologists I know are exceptionally progressive in their politics. I would quote the word progressive as I feel bad for folks who are not considered progressive by those who are self-proclaimed in their progressivity. It seems to be kind of a bad thing to be non-progressive. In fact, non-progressive almost sounds fully synonymous with stupid. But I digress. Yeah, see, I'm already not feeling this article. Non-progressive? Oh, who doesn't want to be progressive? I think they're associating progressive with regressive, unfortunately, because of the behaviors that the self-proclaimed progressives exhibit are anything but. But I digress. Progressive means more than secular Democrat or liberal. This is true. The moniker has a clear connotation regarding action. Those who consider themselves progressive, as far as I can tell, proactively work to uphold various important social values. Yes, they do. Someone who is progressive not only is against racism, sexism, and unjust wars that kill thousands, he or she also has a sense of obligation to shape the world to be less racist, less sexist, less unjust. Can we add the rest in there? Less homophobic, less Islamophobic, less transphobic, less xenophobic. Did I miss any? Seriously. So here's where I get to the crux, and this is why I have an issue with it. Evolutionary psychology has proven to be extremely controversial, often, as I've stated in prior work, perceived as some sort of conservative conspiracy designed to keep gender and the status quo. This portrait of evolutionary psychology is inherently non-progressive. Those that assume that evolutionary psychology is non-progressive, and they also assume that it is an attempt to keep the status quo rather than to understand human behavior from an evolutionary perspective, are authors like this. I do kind of agree with the next piece. In fact, evolutionary psychology is at its core an approach to understanding human behavior using evolutionary theory, arguably the single most influential theory that has existed in the history of science as a guide. Yes, that's exactly what it is. We're looking at the basis of our biology, including our human mind, which is a biological organ, and trying to understand it from an evolutionary lens. To not do so is to suggest that the mind came about by non-evolved methods. We are created. You might as well be a creationist. The idea of understanding human behavior in the light of evolutionary forces is not inherently conservative, sexist, or evil. Not even close. Try to understand who we are by employing the most powerful theory that exists within the life sciences actually seems pretty smart when you think about it. Yes, it does. The rest of this article pretty much goes under to say that the term evolutionary psychology has been defaced, that has been debunked, that has been attacked as inherently sexist because gender dimorphism, meaning that women prefer certain things while men prefer other things, is a real thing. And that does not align with feminist doctrine. Not theories, doctrine. If they were theories, they would be testable and proven to be correct or incorrect. The fact that the last few feminist theories, such as the wage gap, have been proven to be a lie, suggests that, yeah, we've tested these theories and they're full of shit. The claim that gender is a social construct and that gender dimorphism doesn't exist, that is a lie. We know this not to be true. We've tested this inside and out. They deny evolution, so it's only natural that they would come and challenge the evolutionary psychology in the evolutionary fields, such as sociobiology, and claim that it's bullshit. That feminist theory is the only theory and everything else is nothing. But here's some other interesting stuff. So if you go down to the bottom, and you read some insights down here, just the closing remarks. Can insights from evolutionary psychology help reduce unfair sexist policies and actions? Yeah, it could. Quit trying to force women to do things that they don't want to do. All you're doing is driving unhappiness and suffering in the field of women. Adversely, don't try to make men do the things that they don't want to do. All that's going to do is drive men to be depressed and degraded and divide our species across gender lines, which is the dumbest thing you could do, because then the perpetuation of our species goes to zero. If you want to make us extinct, keep along that pattern. Can the insights from evolutionary psychology help lead the world that empowers people regardless of gender? Yes, because if we understand our behaviors, knowing that women prefer things, not necessarily can or cannot do things, because evolutionary psychology doesn't make such bold claims. Feminism does, saying everybody's equal. Evolutionary psychology does not. It just demonstrates that women think differently. Not better or worse, but differently. It's just interesting to me that you read through this entire article and think to myself that what they're trying to do is marry evolutionary psychology with feminism in a hope to find common ground. But the problem with that is the psychologists in the feminist realm reject evolutionary psychology from the very basis that evolutionary psychology has discovered that gender dimorphism is real, that there are sex differences and sex preferences between men and women, and they're very distinct in some cases. In fact, Dr. Peterson has demonstrated that even the most liberal societies that have the most gender neutral laws, where men and women are treated as equal across the board, have more dimorphism than less, meaning that women choose and behave in certain ways. In crisis situations, as just we had with Harvey, you can see the demonstrated differences between men and women on a very real, actionable level, and it's completely psychological. They exhibit these behaviors. The key picture that I can think of right now is the SWAT man carrying a woman and his child out of danger into a safe place, putting them on a boat, helping them escape the flood. That is prime examples of gender dimorphism exhibited by human behavior, which is explained by evolutionary psychology. But feminism would have you believe otherwise. But let's dive just a little deeper into this. So, and here's the URL for FEPS, Facebook group. Tell your friends. So this is a great idea. Everybody should join on. Oh, wait. Sorry, this content is not available right now. The link you have followed may have expired, or the page may only be visible to an audience you're not in. So either it's no longer there, or it's a private group, or they have been obliterated. My money is on they have been obliterated. They're gone because this didn't catch on. Can't imagine why, but it didn't catch on. Let's go through the rest of the references since we have so many. Evolutionary psychology is not evil, and here's why. All right. Uh-oh. newpaltz.edu? I don't even know what school that is. Let's find out. New Paltz, State University of New York. That's pretty impressive. But apparently, 404 not found means that this very article where he tried to marry evolutionary psychology and feminism together was deleted off of the university's website. That doesn't work out very well for your opinion. Testing the Controversy, empirical examination of adaptationists' attitudes toward politics and science. Let's look at that one. Open new tab. Oh, goes to the Department of Psychology in the University of New Mexico. That article is not available. And just to make sure that I'm not clicking something different here, this is the address that it had defaulted to. So this PDF does not exist on New Mexico's website. That's awfully convenient now, isn't it? Let's look at the next one, Evolutionary Psychology and the Public Media. Now this article does exist. It was written in 2009, similar to the other one. And after reading this one, I did actually have a pre-read on this one. It says that terms such as sociobiology and evolutionary psychology have straightforward meanings. The study of social behavior from an evolutionary perspective. The study of evolutionary psychology is the study of psychology from an evolutionary perspective. Evolutionary Psychology and the Public Media, Rekindling the Romance. So if you read through this one, evolutionary psychology Once the darling of public media has been dumped in a recent news article by journalist so-and-so, Sharon Bagley. Return accusations are beginning to fly from the evolutionary psychologists who accuse Bagley of willful distortions and scientific incompetence. This is absolutely true, considering where this is coming from. We all know that the media has a liberal bias and typically sides with feminism or the intersectional religion. But let's skip down here. Take back the terms. The term sociobiology and evolutionary psychology have a straightforward meaning. Sociobiology is the study of social behavior from an evolutionary perspective. Evolutionary psychology is the study of psychology from an evolutionary perspective. Unfortunately, there is a tendency for these terms to become associated with particular schools of thought and endorsed or avoided accordingly. Thus, the study of social behavior from an evolutionary perspective has never been more active, but the term sociobiology is avoided because of the controversy surrounding the publication of sociobiology. The study of psychology from an evolutionary perspective has never been more vigorous and rigorous, but the term evolutionary psychology is avoided by those who disagree with a particular school of thought that rose in the 1980s. What school of thought do you think that is? The feminist perspective of psychology is exactly what they're referring to. Social constructionists is exactly what they're referring to. The rest of this reads to the defense of evolutionary psychology, saying it's been warped by the media, it's been warped by public appearance, it's been warped by feminism, it's been debauched and degraded, and the rest of this article reads that it's more or less the feminist theory and the feminist school of thought that has defamated the characteristics of sociobiology and evolutionary psychology, because both go from a Darwinian perspective, which is to say that we are social species and we evolved to behave certain ways instinctually, whether we like it or not. Some are good behaviors, some are bad. It all depends, since morality is subjective. Regardless, the rest of this reads to say that evolutionary psychology and sociobiology, regardless, the rest of this reads that evolutionary psychology and sociobiology are problem children for the feminist narrative. Google, for example, has fired somebody over this very subject. So I can tell you that there is no middle ground to have, that the battle of ideas starts in these two fields. And what it comes down to my point of feminism deconstructed, feminism denies evolution. Plain and simple. They'll not deny evolution if you find a feminist that also is an atheist, because there are no gods, and the story of creationism in general is usually the easiest target for evolution, because evolution explains how we became a social species. But that's where they draw the line. Once we start to understand our own behaviors, they assume social constructs, they assume sociology, they assume a great myriad of feminist theories, none of which are anywhere near correct. And when feminist theory is tested, it usually requires somebody to either botch the numbers, falsify information, or flat out reject the findings because it didn't align with their position. More so, you will find that in feminist articles and feminist peer-reviewed journals, studies itself do not actually exist. They don't do studies. You just read article after article of opinion, essentially. They place a theory, and it's all philosophical in nature. They argue it from a philosophical perspective, meaning they try to argue the epistemology of their claims. But they never actually go to test the theory itself. So it's all conjecture, no evidence. This too happens in the beliefs of creationism. All conjecture, no evidence. So in closing, I'd like to point out that evolution and evolutionary theory is something that we broke ground on 200 years ago. It's an amazing theory. There is no reason why we should not apply it to other realms of thought and other realms of understanding, including sociology and psychology. Both of these fields rely on our mind. Our mind has evolved to deny the evolution that has clearly taken place, is to deny the 200 years plus of... To deny evolution is similar to being a creationist. You might as well just claim that we're all created, because what you're denying in that point, in that sense, is that there is no such thing as evolution, because it does not align to your doctrine. Feminism, demonstrated here, deconstructed, clearly denies evolution to the deepest sense. Just ask anybody else that's a doctorate that works in any of the fields that rely on evolution. In my field, for example, where I look at leadership and leadership behaviors, I note and I notice that women lead differently than men because of their evolutionary inclinations. I know that gender dimorphism exists. This is why the emotional IQ quotient exists within leadership theory, because women are stronger emotional leaders than men. Men are more analytical. So the different approaches to leadership, all depending on the leader's-follower relationship, rely on evolutionary perspectives to achieve the most effective leadership. If you were to talk to Gad Saad about his theories and his tested conclusions when it comes to marketing and evolutionary psychology, you'll find the same or similar influences, because marketing yourself in leadership is similar to marketing yourself in other forms. It's the same thing. If you were to ask Dr. Peterson, when it comes to evolutionary psychology and social behaviors, you will find that evolution, once again, is correct, and we can test it based on the behaviors that we have exhibited as we've evolved. To say anything is a social construct is to try and blend sociology with psychology, completely negating the idea that we have an evolutionary backing and an evolutionary grounded position. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the Feminist Deconstructed and Feminism Does Not Believe in Evolution. I will be continuing along this series, and the next one should be just as interesting. Please check the links in the description for any of the sources that I used in this particular video, and thank you very much.